Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to be covering something that I've been wanting to cover for a while now, and that's using Deforum but with ControlNet when you're using like image to image. And this is not what I already covered, where you see like a POV of like a camera that's moving through this 3D looking space. So this is going to be more about image to image and trying to get like a consistent animation going. So if you're really interested in using Deforum but with control nets, then this is the video for you. So I'm going to be using Stable Diffusion Automatic 1111. So if you do not know how to install that, I do have a video on how to install that in the link above. And once you have Stable Diffusion installed, you will have to install the Deforum extension. I have a video where I go over the installation process, and there should be a link above for that as well, or in the description. Before I get started, I want to give thanks to Stable Swirls, Artistic Stabilizer, and Andy XR, also known as Function Render Dream. These people really helped me out to try to figure out how this works, because it's not as straightforward as you may think, but they've done some amazing stuff themselves, as you can see. So they all gave me really good tips on how to use this. So I'm gonna go over some of the tips they gave me, and I'm gonna talk about the settings that I played with so that you can experiment a little bit and try to see what gives you the best results. So for this process, you are going to have to download TemporalNet. It's not necessary, but it's going to help with consistency. And the developer of this was the same person who did Temporal Kit, which I did a video on. Yeah, so what you would have to do is, I'm gonna put a link in the description. You come into here, you go into files and versions, you're gonna download this file right here. And then I'm gonna show you where you have to save this. So you go into your Stable Diffusion Web UI folder, you go into extensions, then you go into control nets. You're gonna go into models, and then you're going to save it in this folder. So the second thing we need to download is this .yaml file. You download this, you rename this to be the same name as this without the .safetensor, just the same as the safetensor file, but at the end, it's instead of safetensors, it's gonna say .yaml, and you're gonna save both of them in the same folder. So then you're gonna have these available in your control net. So the great thing about this is that I can actually give you a settings file for you to start with and get yourself going. And here's where you're gonna put the settings file. I will give you a settings file right here that I did to use to do this animation right here. And all I gotta do is just copy as path and then paste it into here. Just gonna take away the quotation marks. And then I'm just gonna load all settings like this, right? So all the settings that I use will be applied to this already. You are gonna have to make some alterations like the width and height. Since I have a 4090, my GPU is pretty strong and it can handle higher resolutions. And this one I did it at 704 to 1088. It's supposed to be 720 and it's supposed to be 1080, but it does not have those numbers by default. So I had to just go with these numbers, but I wouldn't be too concerned because it still works out fine even with these dimensions. Or if you want to make it 1 by 1, then you would make like 704 by 704 or even lower. It just depends on your GPU. Test it out to see how much you can push it. If you have a low power GPU, then I would try to go lower. Yeah, so I'm gonna just call this YouTube. So the batch name is the folder that will be created with this specific name. So in this case, it's gonna be named YouTube. So, and everything I would keep the same. The other thing you have to change is your init. So I don't want an image in it because I don't plan on using it, but I'm planning on using a video in it. For example, I'm gonna be using this video clip. So I'm gonna go where that file is at, and I'm going to right click, and then I'm gonna copy as path. And then I'm gonna come here to where it says video init path. You're gonna select all the text, and then you're gonna press Control V to paste. And then you're just gonna take away these quotation marks. Then you're gonna press Control C to copy, because you're gonna have to copy it over here as well. So now we have our control nets right here, and we're gonna have to paste these paths here as well. This is gonna be the video paths. So I'm gonna pick Control V for this one. My second control net, I'm gonna put the same thing. On the third one, I'm gonna paste it, and then on the fourth one, I'm gonna paste it. So also be aware that if you don't have a lot of VRAM in your GPU, you may also have to remove some control nets, unfortunately, or you're gonna have to click on low VRAM right here. Unfortunately, when you do click on low VRAM, it does take longer to generate the images. So just be aware that this is the only option you have. You might have to just go with this. If even this is too much, then you can always remove some of the control nets. So in a bit, I'm gonna show you the results of removing some of these control nets and how it affects the video. And now that you have these pasted, you also want to make sure that you have the right frame rate. If you don't know offhand the frames per second of the video, then you come to the video file, you right click, you press properties, go to details, and then it should show you here frame rate 25 frames per second. Okay, so we're gonna put here 25. All right, so we got the right frame rate. Also here in hybrid mode, if this is your first time running this, then you have to make sure that you check this generate input frames. If you don't have this checked, then you're gonna get some errors. The prompt is gonna dictate what you're gonna generate, so this is very important. For example, if you download a model from civitai.com, you would come to whatever model you're trying to use. For example, you wanna use this checkpoint right here. Sometimes when you come to the checkpoint, it will give you recommendations like the dimensions, the kind of prompts you should put in. If it's a LoRa, it will tell you the value of the LoRa you should put in. For example, here I put Super Mario and it recommended 0.6, so I put 0.6 there. So yes, you have your main model, you have your LoRa, you have your negative prompts. This, the reason the negative prompt is here is because when you load the settings, it always puts it here, but you can also remove it from here and put it down here if you like. But just remember that every time you load it, it's gonna load it this way. So I just leave it as is so I don't keep changing it. You can also use keyframes where you change the prompt. So for example, you want frame 0 to have this animation with Mario, for example, and then at frame 50, you want it to turn into Luigi, and then at frame 100, you want it to change to something else. So you can always keep adding to this by just copying pretty much the same format. So if you want to add a second keyframe to this, you would just press comma at the end of this one, and you put whatever frame you want the change to happen with the new prompt. So for example, right here, it's going to be at frame 65. It's going to be something else like a dancing colorful avatar character. And you can keep adding as many as you want. You want to make sure at the very end, at your last prompt, you want to make sure that you don't have a comma. So you would have it look like this. But in this case, I'm not going to be using more than one prompt. So I'm going to delete this and just leave my prompt at 0. And it's going to generate everything using just this one prompt. So before I generate this, I want to let you know that if you are getting some errors, it might be because you have some extensions that are causing problems. So what I did is that I disabled these extensions that are causing problems for me, and I just applied and restart the UI, and then everything worked fine. You might have an extension that is disrupting Deforum, so just try to be aware of that. So cadence, like it says here, a setting of 1 will cause every frame to receive diffusion in the sequence of image outputs. A setting of 2 will only diffuse 1 every other frame, yet motion will still be in effect. This is something that I believe is just like it will diffuse 1 and then it will skip 1 and it will diffuse the second one. So this is a good way to have it generate a little bit faster if you want it to generate faster, and it may also reduce a little bit of the flickeriness, but just experiment with it and see what kind of results you're getting if you want to. So I'm just gonna leave it at 1 because I do want to generate every single frame. Now that we're done with that, I'm gonna press generate and it's gonna start generating for me. I would recommend experimenting with different models to see which one is giving you good results, because it could be that some models work better than others. So also, your first frame is always gonna look weird. I don't know why it does this. The first frame doesn't match the other frames, but once you get over the first frame, then everything else should look good. And if you come to your image to images while that's loading, and you come here to YouTube, you'll be able to see the animation that's being generated. Like I said, the first frame looks weird all the time, but then your second frame looks good. So in this case, in this video, you notice that their eyes are not very clear. This is mainly because the person is far away. Whenever you have a subject that's far away, the AI struggles to create good facial features. If you really want to get some nice face images, then ideally you want something that's a little bit more up close. In this case, I'm just more concerned about the body, like how the body looks, than the face itself, because like I said, it's so small that it just makes it into mush. Here I have an example of somebody who is a little bit more up close, and as you can see, there is way nicer details on the face when you're a little bit closer to the camera. So just be aware that if you're getting some bad results with the face, then it's because the person is pretty far away from the camera. All right, so I want to show you some results that I got with the settings that I have already in the video. So if I preview this, you're going to see the animation. The animation looks fluid to me. It looks fairly nice. You are seeing a lot of stuff in the background appearing, and you know, that's the unfortunate part. But if you do some rotoscoping and you mask the character out, then you can get rid of a lot of the stuff that's in the background and make it a little bit cleaner if you like. But this is the best results that I was able to get. And what I mean about the best is the best coherence I can get with Deforum. This is the best that I was able to accomplish with this specific clip. So I definitely encourage you to experiment, but I'm going to show you some other examples of how I ran it without some of these settings. Some of the settings that made the biggest difference for me was tile. When I'm using tile, I had to reduce the weight to 0.5. The starting control and the ending control, I adjusted those to a certain amount so that I can get those results. I'm going to show you in a bit what it looks like without tile, but I want to go over hybrid here as well. Hybrid also affected the quality of the coherence. So when I put 0.5, it seemed to have given me the results that you see there, but I'm going to show you different settings with this as well. So I just want you to keep in mind these, like the hybrid, the comp alpha schedule, the tile, and also the CFG and the strength. All these affect your output. Like for example, the CFG schedule says how closely the image should conform to the prompt. Lower values produce more creative results. So if I put this lower, for example, let's say I'm going to put it to 2, and then I just generate this. I'm kind of curious to see what kind of results it's going to give me. So as you can see, it's when I put the CFG lower, it's not giving me the same consistency. It's giving me like red pants instead of the blue pants that I asked for. And yeah, so now it's starting to not look like the outfit from Mario. It's starting to change things in ways that I really don't want. So that's why I don't put the CFG too low. I have it at 5, but you can experiment with these numbers and it's going to give you different results. So just play around with this. Like right now it's at 5, like I said. Strength, I have it at 0. That also affects how your outcome is going to be, but I feel like 0 works for me very well. So I'm going to show you an example of what happens when I switch this comp alpha schedule from 0.5 to 1. And all right, so you're going to see a lot more flickeriness than you were seeing before. The cool thing about it is that you are not seeing all the stuff in the background that you were seeing before. It seems to keep a little bit more consistency throughout. There's not a lot of temporal coherence between the frames. So like I said, probably ideally what you would want is something in between. So I did try something in between. So this is, instead of 1, so this is 0.75, so it's in between. You're getting a little bit more coherence between the frames, but it still does not animate as nice as 0.5. But again, you don't have as much craziness happening in the background as 0.5. So that's something to be aware of, okay? Again, this is something that you guys can play around with. Every clip will give you certain results as well, so just be aware of that. This does not have tile nor TemporalNet. It only has open pose and head. So let's see how this looks with those. I noticed that the colors are way nicer, but it is very flickery, very, very flickery. But I love the colors. The colors are just nice and vibrant, but that's the sacrifice that we have to make. This one is without tile, but it has TemporalNet, it has pose, and it has head. So let's play this. Way more coherence because of the TemporalNet, but it's still not as clean, unfortunately. Yeah, so yeah, that's the result that you're getting. It's, as you can see, it's different. Then this one's without TemporalNet. It only has tile, head, and pose. So you're missing that coherence. So that's why I ended up using the 4 that I did end up using, because for me, the combination of those 4 gives me the best coherence. I can probably still experiment a little bit with some of the settings outside of ControlNet, but to maybe control a little bit of what's happening out here. But for me, this is just the best that I was able to do with my experiment. Like, I can always fine tune it and try to get it even better than this, but I want to leave it up to you for you to experiment as well and try to figure out what best results you can get. And I would love to see some of your results, or if you have any more suggestions to make this better, let me know in the comments below or hit me up through Discord. I would definitely love to hear some more suggestions and some recommendations. But yeah, this is the best I was able to do. There's also another little cool thing you can do, and as I said earlier, you put the path of the video here in each of the control nets, but you can also choose to have different inits for each of these control nets. So for example, in all these control nets, I use the path of this dancing Mario, but on my init video, I decided to change it to something else. So I decided to use this clip as my init, but then I decided to use the Mario clip on all my control nets. So let's see what that looks like. So in this example, I have the breakdancer and all the ControlNet units, but I have the main init with this guy. So let's see what that looks like. So when I play it back, you can see how everything is moving around because I changed the init. So it looks kind of trippy, it looks kind of like crazy. It's not necessarily making it better in this case. To me, it looks kind of chaotic, it looks kind of crazy, but I think it just has to do with using the wrong clips and combining the wrong clips together. It's not really working together to make something look cool or good. It's just kind of chaos. But I just wanted to show you an example of how you can bring in two different videos to create something that looks interesting. So yeah, so you can see this guy's like hands like kind of warping through here, like moving around, doing this kind of motion. You can even see like how the camera's like moving around like this. You can see that in here. And that's another way to get something that looks a little bit interesting. So I'm gonna put the settings file in the description below. So if you wanna try out these settings, you can try it out yourself and then just mess around with it, experiment a little bit, and yeah, share with me on social media. I would love to see what you guys come up with. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you. Take care, God bless, and peace.